You feel weak, not because you are broken, but because your spirit has been left untrained. The blade does not fail the warrior. The warrior fails the blade. When discipline erodes into comfort, when silence is replaced by noise, when presence dissolves into distraction. Long ago, a young man stood at the edge of a mountain path, trembling, not from cold, but from confusion. His body was capable, his mind was sharp, yet his spirit drifted like smoke, pulled by fear, ego, and the quiet hunger for ease. He believed strength was something to feel. The ancients knew strength was something to practice. In the old systems, samurai, Zen, Stoic, the first enemy was never the world. It was the restless self, the untrained inner voice that seeks escape before mastery, the ego that demands comfort before purpose. This is not a story about becoming aggressive. It is a story about becoming still, about forging discipline where fear once ruled, about choosing presence when the mind begs for retreat. This is the path of the warrior, not of violence but of restraint, not of noise but of silence, not of instant power but of earned strength. If you feel weak, it is not your body that needs sharpening. It is your spirit that must return to the ancient path. Chapter 1. The Illusion of Weakness. He wakes before the alarm, not because he is disciplined, but because his mind refuses to rest. The room is quiet, yet his thoughts are already loud. Lists of things undone, promises broken in silence, a weight in the chest with no clear name. He sits on the edge of the bed, shoulders slightly forward, spine bent, not from age, but from habit, the habit of yielding before the day has even begun. He tells himself the same story every morning. I lack motivation. I'm not built like others. I don't have that fire. But beneath these words is something colder, a quiet self-disgust, not dramatic, not loud, just persistent. He moves through his days, performing effort without conviction, work without presence, rest without peace. When challenges appear, his body responds, but his spirit hesitates. Fear does not scream, it whispers, it negotiates. And each time he listens, the illusion strengthens. Modern language has given him convenient explanations: burnout, stress, fatigue, lack of balance. Useful words, but incomplete truths. They treat the surface, never the source. Because what he feels is not weakness of muscle, it is weakness of command. The ancients understood this distinction. A samurai was not trained to feel strong. He was trained to remain steady when strength felt absent. The young man does not know this yet. He believes strength is emotional, something that arrives when confidence appears. So he waits. And waiting becomes his quiet addiction. Neuroscience would later confirm what the ancients already practiced. The brain does not follow intention, it follows repetition. What is rehearsed becomes familiar. What is familiar becomes safe, and what is safe becomes identity. His identity has become hesitation. One evening, after another day dissolved by distraction, he walks without direction. The city thins, concrete gives way to stone, noise softens into wind. That is where he sees the old man, not elevated, not impressive, simply present. The old man stands still, hands folded behind his back, eyes open yet undisturbed. He does not watch the world, he allows it. The young man feels exposed, not because he is judged, but because he is seen. You walk like someone carrying a burden, the old man says calmly. The words land without accusation. The young man exhales. I feel weak. The old man does not correct him immediately. Silence stretches. Then, no, he says, you feel undisciplined. The distinction cuts deeper than insult ever could. The mentor explains without lectures. Weakness, he says, is not the presence of fear, but the absence of structure. Fear is natural. Every nervous system evolved to detect threat. But when discipline is missing, fear becomes the commander. Psychology names it dysregulation. The ancients called it an untrained spirit. When the spirit lacks order, the old man continues, the ego fills the vacuum, and the ego does not build, it distracts. The young man recognizes this truth immediately. His distractions were not laziness, they were escape. Escape from discomfort. Escape from effort without guarantee. Escape from silence. The mentor does not offer motivation. He offers diagnosis. You are not broken, he says. You are unordered. For the first time, the young man feels something unfamiliar, not hope, but clarity. Awareness sharpens, and the blade makes its first cut. To restore order, the warrior must first enter the one place the ego fears most: silence. The old man does not ask the young warrior to change anything yet. No routines, no vows, no discipline, only observation. For 3 days, he says, do not fix yourself, study yourself. The instruction feels almost insulting. The young man expected effort, pain, correction. Instead, he is told to watch, but watching is harder than doing. On the first day, he notices how often his mind seeks relief, how quickly it reaches for stimulation when discomfort arises. A pause in work becomes a screen. A moment of uncertainty becomes avoidance. Even rest is restless. Neuroscience calls this dopamine-seeking behavior. The brain, deprived of structure, hunts for quick reward to escape unease. The ancients had no word for dopamine, but they understood its effect. An undisciplined mind becomes a marketplace. No order, no hierarchy, only noise. On the second day, he notices something deeper. Fear is not always dramatic. Often it is subtle, disguised as logic. You're tired. This isn't the right moment. You'll do better tomorrow. Fear speaks in reasonable tones. The mentor's voice returns in memory. Fear does not need to dominate. It only needs permission. By the third day, the pattern becomes undeniable. His sense of weakness spikes not when tasks are hardest, but when resistance appears. The body is capable. The spirit retreats. This is the illusion. Modern culture teaches that strength is confidence. The ancients taught that confidence is a byproduct of alignment. You do not wait to feel strong. You act until the spirit remembers its role. The young man returns to the old mentor. I see it, he says quietly. I've been negotiating with myself. The old man nods. The ego always negotiates, discipline does not. He explains that the ego is not evil. It is protective. It wants comfort, certainty, control. But left untrained, it becomes tyrannical. It convinces the warrior that discomfort is danger. In ancient systems, the first training was never combat. It was order. Order of breath, order of posture, order of attention. Because when order is present, fear has no throne. The mentor kneels and draws a simple line in the dirt. This is your path, he says. Not motivation, not emotion, structure. He explains that discipline is not punishment. It is permission. Permission to act without debate, to move without inner conflict, to conserve energy otherwise wasted on indecision. Science would later confirm this as well. Decision fatigue erodes willpower. The more choices the mind negotiates, the weaker execution becomes. The disciplined warrior removes choice. Not to become rigid, but to become free. The young man realizes something painful and relieving at once. He was never weak. He was uncommanded. And without command, the spirit fragments. The mentor stands. Tomorrow, he says, we begin with silence. Because until you can remain present without escape, no action you take will be stable. The young man bows, not in submission but in recognition. For the first time, he does not feel inspired. He feels oriented, and that is stronger. Before the warrior can act with strength, he must learn to remain still without fleeing. Chapter 2. Silence as the first discipline. The mentor does not take him deeper into the mountains. He takes him out of noise. No instructions about goals. No speeches about purpose. No talk of becoming stronger. Only one command. Sit. The place is simple. Stone beneath the legs. Open sky above. Wind moving without concern. The young man expects silence to feel peaceful. Instead, it feels invasive. At first, the world grows louder. Every sound sharpens. The scrape of fabric, the rhythm of breath, the distant call of birds. Then the real noise begins, not outside, inside. Thoughts arrive without invitation. Regret surfaces first. Memories he has avoided replay themselves with precision. Conversations he wishes he had handled differently. Chances he believes he wasted. His body tightens. The mentor does not intervene. This is intentional. Ancient systems understood what modern psychology now confirms. When stimulation is removed, the default mode network activates. The mind turns inward, scanning for unresolved tension. Silence is not calm. It is exposure. The young man shifts his posture, uncomfortable. His knees ache, his back complains. The urge to move grows strong. The mentor speaks once without looking at him. Do not adjust to escape, adjust to align. The distinction matters. Discipline, he explains later, is not endurance for its own sake. It is containment, the ability to remain present inside discomfort without obeying it. The ego does not fear pain. It fears loss of control. As minutes stretch, the young man notices patterns. When discomfort rises, a thought appears to justify movement. When fear surfaces, the mind invents urgency. This is pointless. You're wasting time. You could be doing something productive. The mentor has warned him about this voice. That is not logic, he said earlier. That is fear wearing reason's mask. Neuroscience aligns with the ancient view. The amygdala reacts faster than conscious thought. When untrained, it hijacks attention, framing stillness as threat. The disciplined warrior does not suppress this response. He witnesses it, so the young man watches. He notices how the urge peaks, then fades, how discomfort behaves like a wave, rising, breaking, passing. This is new. In his old life, discomfort dictated action. Now it is simply observed. Hours pass this way, then days. The mentor introduces no variety. Same posture, same place, same instruction. Return. Return to breath. Return to posture. Return to the moment. Presence is not achieved, it is practiced. Slowly, something shifts, not dramatically, not emotionally. The mind grows less reactive. The pauses between thoughts widen. The body settles without force. Fear still appears, but it no longer commands. The mentor finally speaks again. You are learning the first truth of mastery, he says. Silence does not remove fear. It reveals that fear cannot survive attention. The young man understands. Strength is not intensity, it is stability. Silence, he realizes, is not emptiness. It is order, and order is power. When silence stabilizes the spirit, the ego will attempt one final defense, negotiation. By the fifth day, the young man stops counting time. Not because the practice has become easy, but because time has lost its leverage. In silence, urgency dissolves. Without constant stimulation, the nervous system recalibrates. Cortisol levels soften, breath deepens. The body remembers a rhythm older than ambition. The mentor notices the change before the young man does. You are no longer fighting the moment, he says quietly. You are inhabiting it. But the lesson is not complete. True silence does not end thought. It changes your relationship to it. Thoughts still appear. Images of comfort, echoes of past failure, visions of a different life, but they arrive without command. The young man watches them form and dissolve, like clouds crossing an indifferent sky. Modern mindfulness studies describe this as metacognitive awareness. The ancients simply called it presence. The mentor explains that presence is not passive. It is an active discipline of return. Every time attention wanders and is brought back, the mind is trained. Neural pathways strengthen. The prefrontal cortex regains authority over impulse. This is the architecture of self-mastery. One evening, as the sun lowers and shadows lengthen, the mentor finally challenges him. Stand, he says. The young man rises slowly. His legs feel unfamiliar, stronger but quieter. Walk, the mentor continues, without destination. Each step is deliberate, heel, weight, balance. The young man feels the ground fully for the first time, not as terrain to cross, but as a partner in movement. Most men walk to escape where they are, the mentor says. A warrior walks to arrive fully. In this movement, the young man recognizes something profound. His mind no longer drags him forward or pulls him backward. It rests where his body is. Fear has no foothold here. The mentor stops him. Silence is the first discipline, he says, but it is not the last. It prepares you for the moment when comfort offers compromise. The young man understands the warning instinctively. Stillness has stripped fear of its disguise, but fear will return in a subtler form, not as panic, as permission. Permission to rest early, permission to delay, permission to soften the code. The ego does not surrender, it adapts. The mentor places a hand briefly on the young man's shoulder. The gesture is firm, grounding. Tomorrow, he says, we will test whether your presence can survive repetition. The young man bows again. This time the bow is different. It is not respect for a teacher. It is respect for a path. That night, as he lies beneath the open sky, he does not feel powerful. He feels anchored. His thoughts slow naturally. Sleep comes without struggle. Silence has not made him calm. It has made him stable. And stability, he senses, is the foundation upon which all real strength is built. When the spirit stabilizes, the ego makes its final attempt, negotiating discipline into comfort. Chapter 3. Breaking the ego's negotiation. Silence has steadied the young man, but steadiness invites a new challenge. Comfort. The ego does not return as fear. It returns as reason. On the first morning of repetition, the mentor gives no explanation. He gestures toward a simple sequence: stance, breath, movement. Nothing impressive, nothing heroic. Again and again, the young man follows. His body remembers quickly. Muscles engage, breath aligns, posture stabilizes. There is no struggle, only rhythm. That is when the voice appears. You've earned rest. You're already better than before. Intensity isn't necessary. The ego no longer resists discipline outright. It dilutes it. The mentor watches silently. He sees the micro-hesitations, the fraction of a second before commitment, the softening of intent. Finally, he speaks. Now the real training begins. He explains that most men fail not at the start, but after improvement, when progress gives permission, when discipline becomes optional. Ancient warrior systems warned of this stage, not collapse, but erosion. The mentor increases nothing. Same movements, same pace, same silence. Consistency over intensity. Modern science confirms the wisdom. Habits are formed through repetition, not emotional peaks. Motivation fluctuates, systems endure. The young man begins to understand the cruelty of freedom. When every action is a choice, the ego negotiates endlessly. When the path is fixed, energy is conserved. Do not ask how you feel, the mentor instructs. Ask only whether the code has been followed. They repeat the sequence daily. No variation, no reward. At first, the young man resents this. His mind craves novelty. Progress feels invisible. He wants affirmation. The mentor denies it. Reliability is invisible, he says, until it is rare. Days stretch into weeks. The movements embed themselves into the body. Breath aligns automatically. Posture corrects without thought. This is where transformation becomes physical. Neural pathways strengthen. The basal ganglia take over execution. Discipline moves from effort to instinct. The young man notices a shift. He no longer debates starting. He simply begins. Motivation is irrelevant. Mood is irrelevant. Fear still arises, but it is ignored, not confronted. The mentor explains, fighting fear gives it attention. Ignoring it denies it oxygen. This is the warrior's paradox: strength through restraint, power through refusal to engage. One evening, the young man falters. Fatigue creeps in. The old voice returns, gentle, persuasive. Skip once. No one will know. The mentor stops him mid-movement. Say it aloud, he commands. The young man hesitates, then speaks the truth. I want permission. The mentor nods. The ego always asks politely at this stage. He does not scold. He does not motivate. He waits. The young man breathes, centers himself, continues the sequence. No emotion, no triumph, only obedience to the path. In that moment, something hardens, not in the muscles, but in the spirit. Strength reveals itself not as force, but as reliability under fatigue. The mentor finally smiles, not warmly, but approvingly. "You are no longer training," he says. "You are becoming." The young man does not respond. He does not need to. The path has begun to walk through him. When discipline becomes identity, the warrior must return to the world without losing stillness. The days lose their edges, not because they blur together, but because each one carries the same weight. Repetition strips time of drama. Morning arrives, the sequence begins, breath aligns, movement follows. There is no anticipation, no resistance, just execution. This is where most men quit. Not from pain, but from the absence of excitement. The young man feels it too, the flatness, the neutrality, the quiet ache of progress without applause. His ego searches for evidence. Am I improving? Does this matter? The mentor offers none. Mastery, he says, is invisible while it is forming. Ancient warriors trained this way because the battlefield did not reward emotion. It rewarded reliability under pressure. Stoic philosophy mirrored the same truth. Virtue is practiced when no one is watching. Modern neuroscience supports it again. Dopamine spikes fade quickly. What remains is habit architecture. Repetition strengthens synaptic efficiency. The body obeys before the mind interferes. The young man notices subtle changes. His posture outside the training ground is different. Shoulders settle naturally. His gaze steadies. He speaks less, but with intention. When frustration arises, it no longer spills outward. It compresses and dissolves. This is not suppression. It is containment. The mentor explains the difference one evening. Suppression buries energy, containment directs it. The ego once needed negotiation because the spirit was scattered. Now the spirit has form, and form resists erosion. A test arrives without warning. The mentor interrupts the routine. "Stop," he says. They walk into the nearby village. Noise returns. Voices overlap. Temptation appears in small forms. Comfort, distraction, validation. People recognize the young man, compliment his discipline, ask questions. The ego stirs. The mentor watches carefully. This is the true examination, not repetition in isolation, but discipline amid stimulation. The young man feels the pull, the desire to explain himself, to be seen, to soften the edges of his restraint. But the code holds. He listens more than he speaks, moves without urgency. When challenged, he does not react. When praised, he does not expand. Presence remains intact. The mentor finally speaks as they leave the village. Strength that survives comfort, he says, is rare. The young man understands the meaning fully now. Earlier, fear controlled him because discipline had no structure. Later, discipline took shape through silence. Now, discipline endures because it is no longer conditional. It does not depend on mood. It does not require belief. It does not seek permission. That night, the mentor sits across from him, firelight steady between them. "You will not always feel like a warrior," he says, "but if the code is intact, you will always act like one." This is the final severing. The young man no longer seeks reassurance from the mentor or from himself. He does not need to be told he is strong. He knows what he does when no one is watching, and that knowledge is immovable. Discipline has ceased to be something he practices. It has become something he protects. The mentor stands for the last time. "Tomorrow," he says, "you return." The young man nods. No anxiety, no anticipation, only readiness. True mastery is revealed not in isolation, but in how the disciplined spirit moves through the world. Chapter 4. The Return of the Disciplined Spirit. He returns without ceremony, no declaration, no farewell ritual, no promise to remain worthy. The mentor is simply gone, not absent, completed. This is how all true teachers leave, not by holding, but by releasing. The young man understands this immediately. There is no loss. What mattered was never the man. It was the system he carried. The world receives him exactly as it did before. Noise, pressure, expectation. The streets are crowded, voices compete, screens glow, people move quickly, chasing relief from an unease they cannot name. Nothing here has softened, but something in him has. He notices it first in small moments. A delay that would have once triggered irritation now registers as neutral information. A challenge that would have stirred doubt arrives and passes without debate. Fear still appears, because fear is biological. The amygdala still fires. The nervous system still reacts. But fear no longer commands the next action. Modern psychology calls this response flexibility. The ancients called it mastery. The difference is not suppression. He does not crush fear. He does not argue with it. He allows it to exist without surrendering authority. Discipline has rewired the chain of command. He moves through his work with quiet precision. No rush, no drag, just completion. Each task receives full attention, then is released. The mind no longer fragments itself across imagined futures. Presence has followed him home. Neuroscience confirms what he experiences internally. Sustained discipline strengthens executive function. The prefrontal cortex governs response. Impulse weakens. Emotional volatility stabilizes. But what science measures, the spirit already knows. He feels centered, not confident, not dominant, aligned. Others sense it. Not because he speaks differently, but because he no longer leaks energy. His posture is economical. His words are deliberate. When he listens fully. When he decides once. This unsettles people. Some are drawn closer. Others feel exposed. Discipline has a gravity that comfort cannot tolerate. The old temptations return, subtler now. Invitations to overindulge, to abandon structure just this once, to prove something. The ego tests the perimeter, but the code holds, not through effort, but through identity. Discipline is no longer something he does in the morning. It is something he is when no one is watching. Silence still exists inside him, even in argument, even in pressure, even in praise. He remembers the mentor's words. Strength that survives comfort is rare. He understands their weight now. This is not triumph. There is no swelling music, no final victory, only a steady rhythm. Mastery is not an event, it is a posture toward life. One evening, standing alone, he realizes something quietly profound. He no longer needs to ask whether he is weak. The question has lost relevance. The spirit is no longer scattered. It stands assembled, ordered, governed. The path is no longer something he walks. It walks through him. Mastery does not end. It continues, silently, wherever the disciplined spirit chooses to stand. Time moves forward as it always does. Days stack into weeks. Weeks fold into months. The world continues to demand attention, reaction, speed. The pressures do not disappear. If anything, they multiply. But the young man, now simply a warrior, meets them differently. Not with resistance, not with aggression, with presence. He has learned something the modern world rarely teaches. Energy is finite. Where attention goes, life follows. Discipline has taught him to place attention deliberately. When conflict arises, he does not rush to resolve it. He slows his breath. The body stabilizes first. Only then does he speak. His words carry weight because they are not hurried. This is calm authority. Ancient systems trained leaders this way because chaos spreads faster than fear. The composed mind becomes a stabilizing force. Neuroscience confirms it again. Regulated nervous systems influence those around them. Calm is contagious. People notice. They begin to mirror his steadiness. Conversations soften. Decisions clarify. He does not control the room. He centers it. This is the highest expression of strength. The mentor once said that mastery would not make him exceptional. It would make him reliable. That truth reveals itself now. When difficulty appears, he is not dramatic. He is dependable. And dependability is rare. There are moments, quiet ones, when the old self flickers. A memory, a fatigue, a brief desire to abandon the code. These moments do not frighten him. He understands now. Mastery does not erase the ego, it places it in service. He returns to silence regularly, not as retreat, but as maintenance, breath, posture, observation. The ancient system remains alive through practice, not belief. Belief fades. Practice endures. He realizes something else, standing one evening as the city hums around him. The mentor did not disappear. He was absorbed. Every lesson, every restraint, every act of presence, now internal. The voice that once corrected him from outside now speaks from within, not as criticism, as guidance. The path has become internal architecture. This is why the ancients called it a way of life, not a phase, not a program, not a challenge. The warrior's path does not promise happiness. It promises coherence. And coherence is peace. The final transformation is quiet. He no longer seeks to become more. He seeks to remain aligned. Fear will return. Discomfort will visit. Life will apply pressure. But the foundation is unbreakable. The spirit is disciplined. The ego is contained. The mind is present. Strength is no longer something he chases. It is something he expresses through restraint, clarity, and silence. And somewhere beyond noise and form, the ancient path continues, unchanged, waiting for those willing to walk it. Not loudly, not quickly, but completely. You do not feel weak because you lack strength. You feel weak because your spirit has not yet been disciplined.